Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my college football playoff predictions for the 2023 college football season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Great appreciate you do that. Last video for the college football preview. So, last video, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to show all. I forgot which order I put it in, honestly. I'm going to show you all the group of 5 champs. Then I'm going to show you all of the bowl games that I think are going to be important, not named New Year's Six bowls. Then I'm going to show you my New Year's Six bowl projections. Then I'm going to show you my college football playoff prediction, championship prediction, who I have winning the national championship. So, final video. Let's get right into it. And it looks like I picked the group of 5 winners up first. So, let's get right into it. The American, I have UTSA, year 1 for UTSA and the American. I think they go 12-1. The one loss will be to Tennessee out of the conference. And I think that game is going to be close against Tennessee. It's in Knoxville. I get it. But UTSA is going to be very good this year. And let me tell you something. If they weren't playing a top 25 Power 5 program in Tennessee, if let's say, I don't know, they were playing one of the Mississippi schools or I'm just naming schools in the SEC, one of the Mississippi schools, or actually, let me reword that. If they were playing with, I don't know, Mississippi State, Auburn, you look at the Big 12, they were playing Houston, which they actually do. If they're playing Kansas, or a team that probably could make a bowl game, but only like a 6 or 7 win team probably. UTSA would be 13-0 in my opinion. I'm very high on UTSA, 12-1 for them. Mountain West, Boise State. It's a wide. I'm not gonna say it's a wide open Mountain West. I think Boise State is clearly the top team, but they're gonna go ahead and it's gonna be between Boise State against either Fresno State. I think San Diego State's gonna be in the mix. Wyoming, Fresno State is going to be there in the mix as well. Air Force as well. I think I said Fresno State twice in this, so okay. But Boise State at the end, they're just the best team in the Mountain West. The non-conference is a bit tricky. UCF at home, I think they get that big win there. They also go ahead and face Washington though in the non-conference as well. And conference play is going to be tough. I mean, I think they go 6-2 in the conference. Boise State does. But at the end of the day, they'll win the Mountain West at 10-3. Conference USA is Liberty at 11-2. Now, I do think Western Kentucky will have a better conference record, but Liberty will win the Conference USA championship game as well. So I'm going Liberty at 11-2. MAC is going to be between Toledo and Ohio. I like Toledo. I just think Toledo is better. It's going to be a close MAC championship game. The MAC championship game could be a top 25 matchup this year. It really could. Same thing with the Mountain West. Same thing with the American. I've got to mention who I have as runner-ups in the American. It could easily be Tulane. It can FAU is a team that I'm kind of high on as well. It could easily be them. That could be a top 25 matchup. I mean, in my opinion, I think there's clearly going to be a few top teams in the group of 5 that are top 25 teams, but there could be a few dark horses as well. But back to the MAC, it's going to be Toledo versus Ohio. I like Toledo to win the MAC at 12-1. And just because I think they're the better team, they're the more all-around team in my opinion. Sun Belt is going to be Troy. The Sun Belt should really get rid of divisions in my opinion. You look at the Sun Belt, Troy, South Alabama competing in the West, App State probably coming out of the East, even though I think Coastal Carolina and JMU is gonna have something to say about that. Sun Belt's gonna be a lot of fun this year. People call it the Fun Belt. I agree. I like that nickname. It is good football in that conference. But I think Troy is going to be Troy versus not versus Alabama State versus Appalachian State, and I like Troy to get the win there at 11-2. Troy is a team that overall I just think maybe they're not the best team in the Sun Belt, but I'm going to take whoever wins the battle between Troy and South Alabama and at the West Division to win the Sun Belt, because I do think those are the best two teams in the Sun Belt. I'm very high on South Alabama as well. So we'll see who I have coming out of the group of five to represent in the New Year's Six Bowls here, but it's gonna be pretty competitive. It really is. It's even. I'll say this: it probably won't be Boise State or Liberty, um, only because of the records. I think an 11-2 team in the Sun Belt might have a crack at it over a 12-1 team in the American or MAC. So keep that in mind while I get through these bowl games. So next is going to be bowl games, other bowls. These are not the New Year's Six bowls, but these are bowl games I think will possibly be top 25 matchups, or at least a ranked team versus a fringe top 25 team. And the way I predict bowl games is I make the games as interesting as possible. That's how I think the bowl games should be from here on out, since you're expanding the playoffs. So we'll go through these bowl games. The Citrus Bowl, Iowa versus Ole Miss. I'm high on Iowa this year. They are going to be, in my opinion, they're going to win the West Division in the Big Ten. Ole Miss is a team that will have a crack at 10 wins this year. I'm not going to predict these games. I'm only predicting the playoff games. Um, but uh, overall, back to this. Ole Miss, they're gonna be sneaky good this year. Ole Miss. I mean, they're in my opinion, Ole Miss is clearly a top 25 team. Iowa is clearly a top 25 team. This should be a good Citrus Bowl here. We we love a Quest Bowl. I hope we like Quest Bowl. Mispronounced there. Kentucky versus Pitt. I almost went with Iowa versus Kentucky again, but I decided to change it up a little bit. These are two teams here. Kentucky, a team I'm pretty high on this year. Pitt, a team that I'm not as high on as maybe a Kentucky or Iowa, but at the same time, the schedule really works out for Pitt, in my opinion. Both teams will have a crack at 10 wins, in my opinion, and it will come down to this bowl game. It should be, and this used to be the Outback Bowl. Is they Outback must have lost the naming race to the bowl. It's now called the Rely Quest Bowl. This should be a fun bowl game. Both teams getting a crack at 10 wins here. Pretty good seasons for both of these programs. Next is the Alamo Bowl. Utah versus Oklahoma. I almost went with the rematch in the Alamo Bowl a few years ago. Utah versus Texas. But I saved Texas for another bowl matchup, and you'll see why, obviously, once we get to it. These are two teams. This is going to be a top 25 matchup in the Alamo Bowl. Utah's going to have a crack at 10 wins. Oklahoma's going to have a crack at 11 wins. Oklahoma's schedule is pretty easy. It really works out for them, in my opinion. Utah, you know what they do. So Utah and Oklahoma, in my opinion, facing off in the Alamo Bowl should be a pretty fun bowl game. Both teams will be coming off a good season, in my opinion, and Oklahoma will have a crack at 11 wins, Utah at 10 wins. Music City Bowl, Minnesota versus Tennessee. This will probably be a top 25 matchup. Usually 8-4 teams in the SEC tend to be ranked over the Big Ten. Minnesota will be ranked at 9-3, in my opinion. Last time a Big Ten team faced Tennessee in the Music City Bowl, the Big Ten team won, and that was Purdue. Minnesota will have a crack at 10 wins. Tennessee at 9 wins. Minnesota is a team that's won back-to-back seasons with 9 wins. They'll have a chance to upgrade that to 10. Tennessee will have a crack at 9. This should be kind of an interesting game. Kind of different styles of play here for both teams. So if this ends up being correct, this will be a fun bowl game. Next is the Liberty Bowl. This is where I save Texas for. Texas versus Arkansas. Texas will probably be ranked as long as they at least are 8-4. I mean, I've seen bad Texas teams that crack in at 8-5 get ranked at number 25. Arkansas 8-4 at worst they'll be a fringe top 25 team. You know why I picked this as a bowl game. The rivalry, obviously, Liberty Bowl should be a fun bowl game. Both fan bases love this rivalry. Next is the Sun Bowl, North Carolina versus Washington. Both teams will have a crack at 10 wins. This should be a very high-scoring game here in the Sun Bowl. A top 25 matchup, obviously. Drake May versus Michael Penix. it should be a very high scoring game in my opinion, and this will be a fun game if this is if these teams meet in a bowl game, North Carolina versus Washington. And then the last bowl game that I think people will be interested in is the Gator Bowl, South Carolina versus Miami. Both teams will be coming in at 8-4. I think both of these fan bases are pretty big time fan bases. Not maybe not so much South Carolina, but they always seem to be kind of noisy, the South Carolina fans. Um, and I think this is a bowl game. Whoever wins it, okay, repel themselves into having a really good 2024 um, season. The way I have this shaping up to be between South Carolina and Miami, but each team will have a crack at 9 wins in this. So South Carolina had a crack last year, came up a bit short against Notre Dame to get to 9 wins. Miami wins the game, they get to 9-4. They could really repel themselves, have a great 2024 there with Mari Cristenball and company. So this is a bowl game that I think a lot. I don't know if it's going to be a top 25 matchup. I think probably one of the teams will be ranked like number 24 versus an unranked team if this turns out to be the case. But I think a lot of people will be really interested in this bowl game. So these are the other bowls that I think people will watch. I'll say this: the Arizona Bowl is the first team. It's the first place team in the Mountain West versus the first place team in the MAC, if I'm not mistaken. That has a chance to be a top 25 game, in my opinion. So keep an eye on that as well. But let's get into the New Year's Six Bowls here. So the New Year's Six Bowls, these are the non-playoff New Year's Six Bowls. And the way I did this is I made them as interesting as I can. You're gonna see that I wish I could have gone one way with one of these bowls, but there is a rule, and I'll explain that rule. But we'll kick it off with the Cotton Bowl: Florida State versus Kansas State. This is your runner-up in the ACC versus the Big 12 champion Kansas State. At Florida State having a crack at 11 wins here in this combo. Kansas State will have a crack at 12 wins, which for them that would be really impressive if they could get to that. This should be a decent bowl game. I mean, both teams I think will be. I will think Kansas State will be probably somewhere ranked around 10. You'll look at Florida State probably somewhere ranked around 15. This should be a very interesting bowl game here in the combo. Now you're going to see here in this Peach Bowl, I wanted to pick Florida State versus LSU so bad, but there is a rule: you cannot have teams face each other again in the bowl game, unless it's the national championship or the college football playoff. Um, LSU versus UTSA is the Peach Bowl. I went with UTSA to represent the group of five because I just think they're better than Toledo when it comes down to it. They're going to be more explosive with that offense. I think people are going to be more hyped about UTSA. I think UTSA will have a chance to crack the top 15 this year. And you look at Toledo, their one loss for me for Toledo is Illinois. UTSA's one loss is going to be Tennessee. Tennessee is going to be around the country. Is going to be there's going to be more buzz about Tennessee than Illinois, in my opinion. Not saying Illinois is a bad team because I have Illinois making a bowl game, but there's just going to be more buzz for UTSA. LSU comes into this game. They're going to have a crack at 11 wins, improving the win total from last year. I think, and I'll say this right now: I have LSU ranked number 7 in my final rankings. I'm not going to release the final rankings. I'll let you know who 5 and 6 are, and 8 and 9. But I have LSU ranked number 7, and I remember I have Kansas State ranked number 10. I forget where I have Florida State, UTSA, and I think I have UTSA at 15 if I'm not mistaken. But I have LSU ranked at number 7. This will probably be it will be a top 15 matchup in my opinion, and it should be a fun one. I mean, UTSA probably is gonna have. I give UTSA probably a 25 to 30% shot if this turns out to be in the Peach Bowl. I probably will give them that much of a shot to pull the upset off. Remember last year, the Group of 5 team did pull off the upset, Tulane versus USC. Next is the Orange Bowl, and I'll come out and say right now, this is 5 versus number 6. Number 5 Alabama versus number 6 Clemson. In my opinion, here in the Orange Bowl. This is the only bowl that has a conference lock in the ACC. Clemson wins the ACC. They go 11-2. Alabama ranked number 5. They lose the SEC championship game, get to 11-2. Both teams will have a crack at win number 12. And it's blatantly obvious why I put this game together as one of the bowl games. I mean, these two teams faced off in what? 3 championships in recent history. It'll be number 5 versus number 6, yes, but at the same time, um, it's going to be a hell of a matchup. This matchup will get a lot of buzz outside the college football playoffs, in my opinion. And then the Fiesta Bowl, USC versus Penn State, runner-ups in the Pac-12, USC versus a Penn State team that I finishing third in the Big Ten East, in a future Big Ten matchup here. Two blue bloods going at it. Blatantly obvious why I picked these two teams in the Fiesta Bowl. Both teams are going to have a crack at 11 wins. Penn State went 11-2 last year. USC went 11-3 last year, so they'll have a chance to repeat their records from last year. These two teams. I have Penn State ranked 8th, USC ranked 9th in my final poll. So that tells you where I mean, you're going to basically have um, 8 and 9 facing each other in the Fiesta Bowl, and 5 and 6 facing each other in the Orange Bowl. And I think the Orange Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl, there's going to be a lot of buzz in those matchups just because of the brands and everything. So that's the New Year's Six bowls for the non-playoffs. Now we're going to get into my playoff predictions. So let's kick it off with 1 versus 4, and I'll come out and say, I'll come out and say right now, these 4 teams are the only 4 teams in the Power Five that I have with 1 loss or less. So that's why they made the playoffs. Number 1, Georgia versus number 4, Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Um, Georgia 13-0. The schedule's easy. They will beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. By the way, go check out. I did videos on all the Power Five conferences. Went by through the standings and who I have winning each of the Power Five conferences. Go check out those videos. I have not released a video on Notre Dame yet, so I'm going to kind of spend a little bit more time on Notre Dame in this. I have Notre Dame going 11-1 with a loss on the road against Clemson. I think they'll beat Ohio State in week 4. They'll beat USC. I'm high on Notre Dame this year. Notre Dame, bringing Sam Hartman, the transfer from Wake Forest. I think he's going to fit right in there at Notre Dame. And I think Marcus Freeman in year 2 shocks the world and repels Notre Dame to the number 4 seed in the playoffs and gets Notre Dame into the playoffs. You'll see a bit later on, so I'll wait to there. This matchup, um, it's going to be a physical matchup, in my opinion, with the lines of scrimmage and everything. I do think people are going to think Georgia's far more superior coming into this matchup. But I think Notre Dame can hold their own. We'll see what happens. But the Sugar Bowl for the 1 versus 4 is going to be Georgia versus Notre Dame. The 2 versus 3 is going to be Michigan versus Oregon in the Rose Bowl. What a way to end the final Rose Bowl between the Big Ten and Pac-12. Michigan versus Oregon. Michigan, I have them winning the Big Ten at 12-1. I know Harbaugh is suspended for the first 3 games. I don't care. If you look at who Michigan's facing in his first 3 games, you shouldn't care either. The 1 loss for Michigan, I already mentioned in the Big Ten video, but I actually had them losing on the road to Minnesota. Oregon, 12-1. The 1 loss for Oregon, I forget who I have it to. I believe it's Utah. Yeah, it's Utah who's the 1 loss for Oregon. I have them ranked at number 3. Two 12-1 teams. A 12-1 team in the Pac-12. They cannot keep out a 12-1 team in the Pac-12 this year, in my opinion, unless you have 13-0, 13-0, and 12-1 from the Big Ten and SEC, basically, or 11, even 11-1 from those two conferences. I think it's going to be tough to keep out 12-1 out of the Pac-12 if it's a conference winner. You look at Oregon. I'm high on them this year. I am very high on Oregon. Bo Nix is the most underrated player in the country. This team is really going to come down to, can the defense improve? I believe it will under Dan Lanning. And this is going to be a great way to end the Rose Bowl here. Michigan versus Oregon, 2 versus 3. So these are the teams I have moving on. I have Georgia and Michigan moving on. This should have been a national championship game last year, in my opinion. that was an anomaly of a game, Michigan TCU last year, but that's besides the point. I think Georgia, they take care of business against Notre Dame, probably win that game. If I have to give you a score prediction, I'll probably say something like 34-14 Georgia. Michigan, Oregon will be a fun game. It will be a close game, but I'm going to go ahead and take Michigan probably by a score of, I'm going to go 35-27 Michigan. I think Michigan probably wins it maybe by 2 possessions, but I'll keep out 1 possession. But they're going to the Georgia Notre Dame game, I think, will be kind of boring, but the Michigan Oregon game should be fun. These two teams tee off in the national championship game. I will admit I would favor Georgia. I think Georgia should be favored in this game, but I'm picking Michigan to win the national championship. And here's why: I like the quarterback experience with JJ McCarthy. Um, I like that. I like the lines of scrimmage better for Michigan. Michigan probably not the more talented team, but they're going to be the more well-rounded team. You look at and to be honest, I just have trouble picking Georgia to go on a three-peat. I'm not saying they can't. I just have trouble doing it. It's very tough to do. I'm taking the field. I think Michigan's clearly probably the second best team behind Georgia. Matter of fact, I have Michigan ranked number 1 in the preseason, but they're going to be ranked number 2 because of the loss that Michigan will suffer and Georgia will go undefeated. But I look at this game. I think this is probably a bit more of a low scoring game. I'm gonna go probably Michigan. If I had to put a score on it, I'll go something like Michigan 24-21. I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. I think it's gonna be a very physical game. But at the end of the day, give me the Michigan Wolverines to win the national championship for the 2023 college football season. Comment down below. Tell me who you have winning the college football championship. Tell me who you have in the playoffs. Tell me any dark horses. I'll be honest with you. 3 and 4, I think, is wide open for the college football playoffs this year. I think 1 and 2 is pretty much locked between the two teams I have in the national championship. But I think 3 and 4 could be anybody. As you can see, I have two teams that nobody's mentioning. But I think the schedules work out, and I think those are going to be the two teams that have one loss compared to your Alabamas, your Clemsons, your LSU's, USC's. So comment down below. Tell me what you think. I always like hearing from you all. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do that. McD the Beast signing off.